Hello, everybody. This is the Money Free Party channel, and I'm doing a little interview today with Perry Gruber, who has had an organization going for quite a few years called Copiosis, and a lot of you are probably familiar with that. But if some of you aren't, we will just go through it really quickly and kind of give an overview of what the Copiosis system is all about. I'll turn that over to Perry and say hello to Perry. How you doing, man?
I'm very good. Thank you very much for having me here.
Great to see you again. So, um, copiosis is just you believe in the same things that everybody who's into the resource-based economy, Zeitgeist movement, Free World Charter, Venus Project, everything. You believe in pretty much the same thing as us, is that we have to get out of a system that's killing us with capitalism and markets and move into a system where we can collaborate, take care of each other. But the one problem people have with this is money. How are we going to go straight to no money? And I've thought about having a temporary monetary system that would carry us through till we could get to the point where we can produce an abundance. And you've been thinking about that too, but it's not with money, it's with something else. So give us a little description of that, if you would.
Sure. So, Copiosis is a bridging technology that allows society to transition smoothly from this system we have today, which actually has served us quite well in a large number of ways, but mostly in the sense that it's clarified for us that we want something better. And so what this bridging technology does is in this bridging technology, we create a reward system or an award system that we call net benefit value. And we have an algorithm that we have designed that measures the net benefit value produced by any human action. And then we reward the actor with what we call net benefit rewards, which is a non-physical, non-transferable reward that people can use to consume luxuries. All necessities are provided for everyone at no cost to them. Now, some people in the RBE or the moneyless economy community argues, well, Perry, you're just creating another currency. But no, NBR is not a currency. You cannot trade it between people. No one can control how much of it you get. The amount that you get is completely dependent on whether or not your actions produce net benefit value. And so the only one who can control how much you get is you. And we say in Copiosis, because it's a holistic technological bridge, we say that if you focus on your passions and perfect those, then you can become as rich as anyone else in any sort of system.
So, you have to sort of put a value, I guess, on people's work, but in another way, you don't really want to do that. I mean, if you have a doctor who's doing very important work, helping heal people and take care of them, and then you have someone else who's not, doesn't have quite a specific talent like that. Maybe others wouldn't deem as important. Maybe he is or she are working to clean up the city, to beautify it.
Yeah, let me jump in there because we don't put a value on people's work. What we do is we measure the results that are produced and we evaluate the results based on the criteria described in the algorithm. And so the algorithm is available for anyone to look at. So I'm not going to go into those details. If you go to copiosis.com, you can find out about the details yourself. But so we're not putting value on what people do. We're measuring what they produce. And so in your example, Steve, if you have a doctor who has performed some sort of procedure on someone and that person gets better because of that, we measure based on 8 criteria the results of what get better means. And then if we have this other person that you're talking about who cleans up their community, we measure the results that that person has produced and what that person did to produce those results. And then we reward both people based on the measurement of the result they produced. Yeah. So a person who cleans up a city can be just as wealthy as a doctor. It all depends on the impacts to the planet and to people and to human beings and to the environment.
What happens if that patient dies? No, I'm just.
No, let's look at that because sometimes that does happen. If a patient receives a procedure and the patient succumbs as a result of the procedure, then the doctor doesn't receive any reward, and neither does anyone who contributed to that procedure, including the nurses or the assistants or even the hospital administration.
Yeah, but they tried. I mean, they put in
Doesn't
the.
matter. It doesn't matter if they tried or not. The results are what matters.
Okay. Well, I mean, if I was a doctor and I see somebody who doesn't have a good chance, but I want to try to help, but then there's somebody else I can hire and I'll get more rewards. I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
So that's not a very good devil's advocate because we know that doctors have a Hippocratic oath, which means that they're going to do their best to save lives. And in capitalism, your argument makes sense because the doctor is motivated by profit in some ways, but they're still motivated by the Hippocratic oath. But in copiosis, they're not motivated by profit. They're motivated by their Hippocratic oath, which is their passion. And so, yes, they're going to try to save a patient. And if that patient dies, so what if they don't get MBR for that one patient? They're serving probably hundreds of patients, and the balance of their reward is going to be reflective of that. And so, just because I'm not diminishing this single life, but we are talking about one patient. Just because this patient dies doesn't mean the doctor is going to lose his house or his family's going to go hungry or anything like that, because we're providing the basic necessities at no cost to the doctor. So there's no big risk to the doctor trying to save a person's life and the person not being saved.
That's what everybody needs to understand about this is the basic necessities of life are provided for everyone. Nobody is going to worry about being kicked out of their home, being homeless, going hungry, not having enough food. Everybody's going to be taking care of that. And that's what we love to hear. And then things on top of that, if you have a few sailboats up at the lake and I want to go spend a day on one of those, I would sort of cash in my rewards for something I've done for something extra. Is that a good example of something extra?
Kind of. The language is kind of off, and that's okay. But it's really important that we understand that we're talking about something that is not what we have today, using language that we have today. So when you say, for example, cash out your rewards, you can't cash out your rewards because it doesn't operate like cash. So let's say that there's a number of sailboats at a lake and you want to go use one. And the owner of those sailboats, because everything in Copiosis is private property, which means people who own property are responsible for stewarding the property to make sure that the property is well maintained and that it serves humanity and the planet in the best way possible. So let's say that you, Steve, go to this lake and you want to use a sailboat, and the owner of the sailboat has designated those sailboats as luxury items. In other words, you get the luxury experience of sailing this sailboat around the lake. So the owner is going to put a gateway on those sailboats, and you have to have enough MBR to satisfy the gateway, which kind of unlocks being able to use or enjoy the service that the sailboat would provide. So if you have that amount of MBR, you enter into an agreement with the owner. The owner allows you to take the sailboat out, and our system, the Copiosis software, simply removes the amount of the gateway from your MBR account. The MBR that is removed from your account goes nowhere. It just disappears. When you say cash out, when you use the word cash out, what that means is when you give up your money, it goes into someone else's pocket. And that's not what happens here in Copiosis. In Copiosis, when you meet the gateway, the MBR just disappears from your MBR account. It doesn't go into the owner of the sailboat's account. That person gets rewarded MBR when you go out and enjoy the sailboat and come back and report that you had a great time with the sailboat. Now, if you say, for example, that the sails were raggedy and they didn't hold the air and they kept breaking and my experience sucked because of that. I'm a good sailor, but I couldn't manage to sail the boat because the equipment was crappy. If you said that, then the owner of the sailboat would get less MBR for the experience of you taking the sailboat out. So this is why in Copiosis, everyone is inspired to provide the best service possible, because the better the service and the cleaner the service regarding the environment, the more MBR people get.
Yeah. So the algorithm says, did you ever expect you would be saying that word algorithm so many times? You were talking about it 5 years ago and you were getting it together. People were working on it. at some point, did that kind of get to a place where you said, well, we've got this algorithm? I'm sure you're always working on it, right? But is it pretty much done at this point?
Well, we are always working on it, but it's in version 7.1 right now. And this is really important, Steve. So we're in the process of developing connections with the United Nations and the healthcare community. And in the process of doing that, we are preparing to use the algorithm to reward nurses, bedside nurses, as they contend with COVID-19 and
Yeah.
beyond that. There are a lot of things that nurses are doing right now that they're getting fired for. There are a lot of things that nurses are doing right now outside of their prescribed job description that are helping keeping people safe, and they're not getting paid for those things. And so we're looking into this circumstance, and it's going to be one of the first places that we are able to deliver real world NVR to a group of people. And then we
Yeah.
expect to use that test to expand into other industries where we can start making NVR
Yeah.
rewards today, even though the entire system is not in place yet. So
Yeah.
yes, our algorithm is functional. We've used it before in our demonstration projects, and we're about to roll them out in the nursing community. Yep.
NBR. We've been saying NBR a bunch. That's net benefit reward. I don't know if we made that clear earlier. Maybe you did, but just so that people know, that's what they call the rewards you get, and or the net benefit is what you create, and the net benefit reward is what you
Is
receive.
what you receive, yes, for the
Right.
net benefit value that you create, yes.
Right. You then you've been rolling out some uh, demonstration projects. To tell us about that. It's been going on for
Well, so that was a while ago. Our first attempt to implement Copiosis was we wanted to find out whether or not Copiosis could work in a real world scenario to the degree that we could roll something out like that in capitalism. And so
yes.
maybe 4 years ago or more, we launched two demonstration projects, one in North Portland and the other in Northern California, to demonstrate for ourselves whether or not this would work. And it proved that it worked. After the Z-Day event that I participated in Greece, we got 23 other communities from around the world that were wanting a demonstration project, and we were overwhelmed with the amount of interest, so we were not able to continue that project. But this new project with the bedside nurses is much more scalable and much more feasible, especially since we have contacts with the UN to help us do this. And so this is the first time I'm announcing this in any place. And so you get the benefit of being the first to hear this,
Yeah,
Steve.
all right.
I'm inviting anyone from the moneyless economy ecosystem, the RBE ecosystem, to reach out to us so that you can participate in the community that we're building that will facilitate our ability to reward MBR to COVID-19 nurse practitioners. Because this initiative that we're driving right now has far greater impact potential than the demonstration projects we were running, because it will show to the world that it's possible to use our algorithm to reward people for everything that they do, not just the things that they're paid money for. And
Yeah.
so the critical element that we need to get this initiative rolling is a group of about 500 people actively participating with us to help seed the development of this nurse reward system. And so I'm inviting people who are listening to this to reach out to us on the Copiosis social group on Facebook. You search Copiosis social group on Facebook, reach out to us there, come in, and let's talk about you getting involved in this community, because this bridging technology that is Copiosis, from my awareness at this point, is it's the only practical way that we can transition from what we have today into the future that everyone in this ecosystem wants.
That's what we all want to do is transition out of capitalism, and this system it's just really, it's got a grip on everyone. It's so hard to implement what we talk about in a resource-based economy, or projects where you want to try to get off the grid when you still have to pay taxes to the system and they still have a hold on you. So hopefully we're reaching that point, that critical mass of more and more people are getting educated to these organizations that are around. I'm sure that's what you're finding.
What I'm finding is that the biggest problem in our ecosystem, again, the moneyless economy RBE ecosystem, that includes all the organizations doing what all of us are doing. The biggest problem is an attitudinal problem. If you think that the system is a problem, if you think that the rich people have all the power and therefore they're evil, if you think that the system is working against us, then you're blocking yourself from finding the solutions that can work in that space. And so we've got multimillionaires who are looking to invest in Copiosis. We've got a political strategy that we're putting together with conservative Americans to move our bridging technology into
Yeah.
reality. We have CEOs around the world who are looking at what we're doing and joining us to participate to help us roll this thing out. And so, and we're able to do this, Steve, because we do not see capitalism or rich people or this or paying taxes. We don't see any of that as a problem. This is all of these things that many of us rail against in this ecosystem are actually opportunities for us to leverage to create what it is we want to happen. But as
Yeah.
long as we see them as problems, you cut yourself off from the solutions and you can't make progress.
So there's a lot of people, rich people too, millionaires, billionaires, who understand the system is breaking down and it is
Yes,
unsustainable. It just
yes,
can't go on. Yeah.
yes. They're looking for ways to solve the problem, but many of the organizations in our ecosystem aren't offering them opportunities because number one, their ideas aren't practical. Like they haven't thought through things like how do you actually eliminate debt so that you don't screw the people who hold the debt, not the debtors, the creditors. How do you do that? How do you transition a corporation that's worth billions of dollars and not into a moneyless system while not losing the value that's represented by that billions of dollars? You have to have a solution to that.
Yeah. So how do you do
Well,
that?
with Copiosis and our transition system, what we do is we transfer or we transition or we exchange every dollar of debt, dollar for dollar, into NBR. And by doing that, the creditors, the banks, the people who offer loans, those people are left whole. So if they so you got to understand, debt represents a value stream to the creditor. The bank makes money off of your debt. And so
Mhm.
what we do is we take the net present value of a debt and we compensate the creditor for that amount. We give if the debt, so let's say you have a car loan and your car loan is $15,000. And let's just for easy math, let's say the total interest amount that would be realized by the bank in the 5-year payoff period that you have for that $15,000 is $3,000. So when we at the transition, what we do is we give the bank 15,000 net benefit rewards plus 3,000 net benefit rewards. Now the bank is free and clear. They're not harmed in any way. And then the person who has the car, they get to keep the car and they no longer have the
Mhm.
$15,000 in debt. And so there's no one harmed there.
Is there a plan to phase out banks? I know when we talk about banks, I mean, that's the whole thing of making money off of money is a big problem. What do you think
Well,
about that?
well, so this is, so you're expressing the attitudinal problem that exists in our ecosystem. The question about whether banks are going to exist or not is predicated, I believe, in our ecosystem that banks are bad. And banks aren't bad. They have facilitated a lot of innovation. If it weren't for banks,
Mhm.
many inventors wouldn't be able to get the things that they've invented out the door. So what we do in Copiosis is we provide a way
Mhm.
for, and by the way, also people like people's grandmothers and grandfathers invest in banks, and it's the investments that allow grandmothers and grandfathers to be able to receive what they need to survive in this system. So banks are
Yeah.
providing a lot of value. So
Yeah.
what we do in Copiosis, we compensate everyone who works in the banking system for the value that they've provided. which leaves
Yeah.
them free and clear. We don't need banks anymore because now the Copiosis algorithm is rewarding everyone with NBR. And so those people who used to work in banks can now use the talents and the skills that they have honed over their careers to do really great things for society.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like phasing out, sort of. Let me ask you about insurance. You know, the entire insurance industry, everyone that works in that actually produces nothing at the end of the day. And why
Well,
should,
well, hold on again. So again, insurance companies do provide value because if most people today, it's value in the context of the current system. So most people today, if they were to total their car, they can't afford to go out and buy a new car. And so they pay insurance in the interim so that if they total their car, in many cases, not in every case, they're able to get a replacement car. That's valuable in this system. Now, in Copiosis, in the transition that we have designed and we're implementing, what happens with insurance companies is there's no need for insurance companies in Copiosis, but there's great value in insurance companies. So we compensate everyone who works and invests in insurance companies for the value represented by insurance companies, leaving insurance companies now free and clear. They don't have to make any more money because they have all the MBR they need. The people working in insurance can use their skills now to improve humanity and the planet.
and they don't have to go to work at the insurance company anymore?
There's no need for insurance. So in Copiosis, if you have a car, more than likely the organization that made the car is going to own the car. You're not going to own the car. You're going to enjoy the service the car provides. That's important because if you're driving down the road and you crash your car, the organization that owns the car, that stewards the car on your behalf, can take the car and repair it at no cost to you. And when they do that, they get net benefit for fixing your car.
Yeah.
So why do you need insurance at that point?
Perry, if someone owns three or four or five houses, will they still own? I mean, it's more houses than someone needs, and they probably can't take care of them all. So they pay someone else now to take care of their house. Will there still be a lot of people with a lot of property who keep it all, or are we going to have like a limit on what one person can have?
So listen to how you're speaking, and you're speaking in the same way. This isn't personal.
Yeah.
I'm using you as an example of everyone else who's listening to this conversation. The way you're speaking implies some things that cannot be taken into the future. One is a judgment about what people have. We can't be judging what other people have. Just because a person has a bunch of houses, all that means is that they played the game that we're currently in. They played the game successfully, and they shouldn't be penalized for that.
Yeah.
And as far as putting limits on things, we cannot prescribe what other people can have and not have because other people are free, just like we're free. So let's say that we're in Copiosis, we've successfully moved into transition, and there's some woman who owns 5 houses. Great that she owned those 5 houses. She gets to still own her 5 houses, and she gets to use those houses in any way she wants. Now, in Copiosis, those houses could produce a lot of MBR for her if she allows other people to live in those houses when she's not living in them.
Okay.
And because other people are going to want MBR, Steve, people will offer to take care of her houses because when they do so, they're going to be creating value, net benefit value. And so they're going to get rewarded by the algorithm for keeping those houses up for that woman.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Now, let me just add one other thing, Steve.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why we have this attitudinal problem, and it's not just in our ecosystem, it's a worldwide, is because we've lived in a system that creates the perception that if someone gets 5 houses, that's 4 houses less than I can have.
Yeah.
In other words, there's this belief in scarcity that if someone gets more than I do, that means there's less for me. That's not really reality. That's just a perception we have because of the system that we've been living in. In Copiosis, just because a woman has 5 houses doesn't mean you can't have 5 houses.
Yeah. Well, we're phasing out money, I guess, in Copiosis,
Yes.
right? We're phasing out money. So will there be any more billionaires?
There will be people who have billions of MBR because
Okay.
imagine, let's say a farmer let's say a farmer, not an agro corporation, a single farmer who maybe a
Hmm.
farming family of 5 people. They're out on their farm and let's say they produce corn or soybeans, one of the heavily consumed crops. So let's say they have 3 acres, and their 3 acres of soybeans can feed, let's say, 1 million people. Or even better, let's say that what they do with their soybeans is they give them to hog farmers to feed hogs. And the hogs that are fed by those hog farmers
Hmm.
feed 50 million people around the world. Bacon, pork chops, lamb
Hmm.
chops, all that stuff. Pork
Yeah.
rinds, one of my favorites. Okay,
Hmm.
vegan, don't get mad at me. I like pork rinds. Now, so if the one of the things that the algorithm rewards is how many people around the world is the thing you're doing serve.
Yeah.
So if a single family farming soybeans can serve 50 million people around the world by feeding their soybeans to hogs, that family is probably going to become MBR billionaires.
Yeah, well, they'll have too much NBR to do anything. What are they going to do with a billion NBR?
That's a great question. And this is the great thing about copiosis. Eventually, Steve, everyone becomes an MBR billionaire. And
Yeah.
at that point, everyone starts asking the question you just asked. And when everyone starts asking that question, the
Hmm.
natural answer is, let's just get rid of this
Ha
MBR.
ha. That's what I like to hear because when I think about, I've talked about having a temporary monetary system until we can produce an abundance of what people need
Yes.
and there's no need for it anymore. With food, I believe we turn our attention to producing food in every community, everywhere, within 2 years. We'd have such an abundance of food, more than you can eat, and we can make it free. And with other products, it'd maybe take a couple more years, but within 4 or 5 years, we would move beyond this point where we'd need a temporary system and we'd move beyond what copiosis is doing here to where we just have an abundance and we can let go of all.
That's why I call it a transition technology, because what it does is it
Yeah.
ultimately gets everyone to the question you just stated. Why are we dealing with this MBR stuff? Why do we have this algorithm when we have so much abundance? The reality, Steve, is we already live in a world of abundance. And the
Yeah.
only thing that's keeping us from perceiving that is that we've lived in a society that creates the perception that there is no abundance.
It's all great news, Perry, and so appreciative of everything you've been doing for so many years to move this along. So,
It's been a very fun ride, and we're eager. While it's been great, these last 6 years have been great, Steve. The next 6 years are going to be freaking fantastic. We're going to
yeah,
have so much momentum that people are going to look and say, "Wow, look at what Copiosis is doing." Especially once we start fielding um, our political strategy, where we're going to be putting Copiosis representatives in state governors' offices and state legislatures and local governments so that we can really begin leveraging the value that everyone knows exists in our society. We have
yeah,
tremendous value, and it's represented by human beings acting. And our first effort is in rewarding, in recognizing the value that human beings produce. Recognizing the
yeah,
value that human beings produce is by rewarding these nurses who are currently on the front lines, keeping people, trying to keep people alive, successfully keeping some people alive, and helping some people who are not surviving transition in a way that's as painless as possible. And so those people, those bedside nurses, they deserve far more compensation that they're getting. And this
hmm,
system that we're in, it can't adequately compensate them. So it's time that we start rolling out the Copiosis MBR award system so that the nurses can start receiving due compensation. And so that's what we're going to be doing.
yeah. That's
So
great.
I encourage everyone who's watching to contact us through our Copiosis social group. You can go onto Facebook, search Copiosis social group, come inside the social group, make yourself known, and we'll tell you how to plug into this new project we're doing with the UN.
Yeah, we have, I don't know, quite a few million people homeless now, don't we? In our country, and many people hungry, can't afford food. So in Copiosis, basic necessities are provided for. To get there, to get the people who are homeless now, is that going to be a difficult? It seems like that's going to be a difficult first step.
To do what? To do what with the homeless?
In Copiosis, everyone has their basic necessities provided for them.
Hmm.
What about the people who are homeless right now?
So if you look right now, so nothing that Copiosis is doing is new. It's all been done before in some way or another. So if you look at the homeless situation right now, so let me back up. Nothing is new because all that we're doing is we're harnessing the passions of human beings. Human beings have all the answers. And so if you look at the world right now, there are human beings taking action to house homeless people. They're organizing in their churches, they're organizing in other organizations to build tiny houses, for example, whole communities of tiny houses. There's a couple in Texas, there are a couple in Seattle, there are several here in Portland, Oregon, where people marshal their resources in capitalism.
Yeah.
In capitalism, they marshal their resources and they build these tiny houses and then provide homes to the homeless. Now, in Copiosis, these people aren't faced with the enormous cost of having to do that because the materials and the labor are provided at no cost to anyone. So if you have people today, Steve, who are willing at great cost and time and energy to produce tiny houses to house homeless people in a system that is challenging to do that in, don't you think in a system where none of those challenges exist, it'll happen much faster?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because people are passionate about loving other people, and they're going to want to express that love in acts. And all we're doing in Copiosis is we're providing an environment for that kind of expression to occur more easily. And I can promise you that when Copiosis has become prevalent, more people, there are going to be so many people acting to house the homeless. It's going to happen very quickly.
Yeah.
And some of those people are going to be doing it just because they want to do those things. But others are going to be doing it because they know that when you put a human being in a house, you've created a lot of net benefit. So you're going to get a lot of net benefit reward.
Right.
But it doesn't matter because the goal that we want is putting people in houses, right?
Right.
And the same thing goes with food, and the same thing goes with healthcare, and the same thing goes with clothing. All of those things, it's not going to be hard to do once you remove the constraints that keep people from doing those things.
All right. Okay. Hey, Perry, it's been wonderful talking to you. Great to see you again here. It's been
here.
quite a few years.
Yes.
And we'll get this online and all the info up with it and send people to Copiosis and see how it's coming in another year or two. We'll check back in with you.
That would be great. Nice seeing you again, Steve.
Thanks, Perry.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.